Hey, Dylan!
What the fuck are you doing in my bathroom?
Are you ready for the Deadpool review?
What are you doing in my bathroom?
Are you ready?
Well, I hate to say it, I filmed it last week.
What?
Yeah, that was last week, man.
What are we supposed to do?
Well, I'm covering Wolverine this week.
Give me 1 minute. You ready for Wolverine?
Where'd you get the mask from?
Internet.
Hi, welcome to Film Stash. My name is Douglas Campbell, and today we have a special guest.
My name is Dylan Kupek.
Today we're talking about the Wolverine Trilogy. So, Dylan, tell me, are you familiar with the X-Men or Wolverine?
Oh, I'm very familiar with just Marvel in general. I've been a huge fan since I was a kid, kept up with it ever since, up to date.
And I've been a big fan of the X-Men for a while now, like about 10 years, especially in the movies. With this new Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming out, dude, I am so excited for it.
Yeah, no, I've seen the trailers, and I'm looking forward to it as well, especially because they're now finally bringing everything together as a whole. Like, X-Men and Deadpool's always been separate with Fox and other ownership rights. Now they're trying to bring it into Marvel, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, things are merging together. It's a very exciting time, really.
Very. I'm happy to see Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman perform again.
All right, let's just jump right into the Wolverine trilogy then.
All right, let's do it.
So we're covering X-Men Origins Wolverine. Seeking solace from his dark past, Logan, played by Hugh Jackman, known as Wolverine, seems to have found love and contentment with Kayla Silverfox. Logan's peaceful existence is shattered when Victor Creed, Liev Schreiber, his vicious brother, brutally murders Kayla. Logan's thirst for revenge propels him into the Weapon X program, where he undergoes a painful procedure to bond his bones with adamantium, making him virtually indestructible and more than a match for Victor. Tell me, what are your thoughts generally on X-Men Origins Wolverine?
Well, I think it's a very nice, or not nice, I would say different concept of what we're usually with. Because even if you're a fan of Wolverine and the other X-Men, anything with comics related or into the TV shows, Fox, I believe it's Fox that has the ownership over them.
Yeah.
They did the perspective like, hey, we're going to show you his origins. There's not much known about him if you haven't seen the comics and TV show. It was a nice perspective for a new fan base. I think Wolverine Origins really shows the compelling story of who Logan was before he became Logan. Not many people know about how his bone claws were actually made, or how he got his powers and how he originally came from. So many people don't actually realize how old Logan really is, or his name's not truly Logan, it's actually James. Spoiler alert. This dynamic part of the story showing how lustful and how beastful he becomes, and to really introduce of who the Wolverine is. Before, he was just a mutant going through his life with his brother, trying to survive.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, like, I've seen this movie before, too, like, many times over the years, and honestly, I think it gets a tad overhated, personally, on the internet, because I think it's a pretty solid origin story for Wolverine.
I agree. There are a lot of small, like, little nitpicks you can take that you might not like about the movie, but overall, like you said, no one knows about the origins of Logan, so to actually introduce this to us, I thought was done pretty good.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Especially the chemistry with Hugh Jackman and Liev Schreiber as the brothers that grew up, kind of going their own ways. It really was an interesting dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly wish that Liev Schreiber was used more, because, like, him as Victor, oh my god, he's, like, so intimidating in that movie.
Right, and what I liked about that, too, is compared to the other X-Men movies or even the shows, you see Sabretooth, which is his, mutant name.
Yeah.
A lot more of a just barbaric animal going into the name of Sabretooth.
Yeah.
In Origins, you really see the other perspective of him, like, before he started to be lustful for power. Like, he cared about his brother, but also he knew he was a mutant. He knew what he wanted to do. You just see him really turn towards the dark side, which I really appreciate in the movie.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing about it, is, like, when you look at these movies, and we'll go more into it for sure with the Wolverine and Logan, Hugh Jackman, I feel he never really phones it in at all. Like, every performance he's done as Wolverine, it's different, but it's always good. It's always perfect, I feel.
He was really molded into this character. Like, there's certain actors that were picked great for casting, and Hugh Jackman definitely filled that role.
Yeah. What I find find interesting about this particular entry, at least with how Wolverine's portrayed, it's like he's not that different from who he sort of becomes down the line when he meets Charles and the X-Men, and even further down the line with other adventures. But he feels different in a way where he is sort of a different person. He has his own different kind of life in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
You see how he progressed into the Wolverine.
Exactly, yeah. And I just think, like, to be able to act sort of different in that component and then act differently later on, I think it's truly impressive, really. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that particularly stuck out to you, positive or negative, with this movie?
There actually were a lot of positive things. Like we already discussed about the casting, I think everyone in their roles did a great job in their characters, especially even small parts of the movies, like when Ryan Reynolds was Wade Wilson. Not many people like the Deadpool, but I personally think on that perspective of it, how it was in the comics and the TV shows, which not everyone knows, it was actually pretty spot on.
Yeah.
The way it was delivered could have been a little different.
Yeah.
I think another good positive thing was a lot of the action and the CGIs into it, like seeing Wolverine's healing factor, all the crazy explosions, the stunts. I thought everything was clean.
Oh, for
Especially
sure.
rewatching it now, just for this review, I thought, wow, I really missed how much I liked this movie.
Oh, yeah. Like, a stunt that sticks out to me is the helicopter stunt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whenever he's going after the strike force that killed his kind of surrogate farmer father and mother, you know.
Just the nice civilians that try to help him out.
Yeah.
Or even to me was also when he was first experimented to give the adamantium into his skeleton. That I thought was great seeing alone with all the technology there, all like of him running through the buildings. I thought that was really well done too.
Yeah. And what you do mention that scene where he just gets out of the Weapon X program. They do keep it pretty suspenseful, even though, you know he's not going to die.
Right.
Which I think that's kind of neat. You're able to have like that suspense of like, oh no, his heart's about to stop. But then it just restarts up and he's an animal.
Like for me, it was never really boring. It kept getting suspenseful, and even if it didn't, a lot of the action scenes I thought were very well done, which kept me into the movie.
Yeah. Now, we were talking earlier about Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool. Like that. Like, here's the thing. I haven't actually seen like the Deadpool movies until they came out.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have much of an idea as to who Deadpool was. So I thought the concept at the end of like a mutant created just for killing, it's what Wolverine would have become. Just this blind, soulless killing machine that's Frankenstein together from other abilities. That, to me, that's a good concept. I think it really is a good concept. But the problem is, you made that character Deadpool, and you sew his mouth shut, and you remove all the quips. He doesn't even have his katanas. They just make it like the Wolverine blades. It just comes out of his wrists. Dude.
That was one of the rough things watching, because, like, again, from a normal perspective, you have no knowledge of the Marvel Universe or anything like that. You would think it'd be really cool, a perfect opponent for Wolverine to fight off, literally copying off not only his power, but all their multiple powers, making him the ultimate killing machine. But when you do know about the comics and everything, not that it was wrong, because again, Deadpool actually has multiple powers in the MCU. He has more than just regeneration.
Really?
Yeah, he has different powers, and they kind of put a little bit into it. Even has some Easter eggs, like when he uses Cyclops' power, his eyes even turn black like the Deadpool mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the only issue that you said, the claws, it were his blades. I feel like they put a lot of extraness into this version of Deadpool, and didn't really live to the expectation, because, like, yeah, he fought Wolverine, and he's supposed to be the perfect weapon. I feel like there was a lot of setbacks in how he was portrayed as the character. Like, oh yeah, he's the killing machine. And that's it. He just taken down with a quick swipe to the neck.
Yeah, no, that's it. Although I do think, like, if we're going off of the multiverse thing, I think they might bring him back.
It is a possibility, especially, again, spoilers alert, with the after credit scene.
Yeah.
He's not dead. He does come back, and that's perfectly understandable, because with Wolverine and Sabretooth's powers, they have a crazy regeneration. Like, they've literally come back through the comics a drop of blood.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot just to kill any of these men. So I'd be excited to see him in the next movie if he even comes back. But if not, I'm okay with that. He can stay in Origins.
Yeah, no, just keep him there. Unless he's Headpool. I'm fine if he's Headpool. Yeah, generally, I don't have too much of a negative with the film, except, obviously, except for Deadpool and how he's portrayed. I do kind of think the movie gets a little overstuffed in the latter half, for me, personally. Because as much as I love the stuff with Wolverine's origins, but I feel like they try to include a bunch of other mutants in the film, like Scott Summers' origins in there too. And you're also including Professor X, and it kind of bogs down the finale, but it also kind of plays into how what they're doing with the Weapon 11 program. I don't know. I feel like it's too many mutants. I would have preferred the focus to be more on Logan, on Victor, on Stryker, just those three, you know?
See, I would have to agree because even rewatching it, there is a lot going on. Not even just for the casting, but just the story in general. So that's something another thing I actually had an issue with was some of the casting. I didn't care for Creed that much in the movie. To me, not only in the comics, but just in general, he's supposed to be known as a mad scientist experimenting on mutants, using it to basically extinct them as well as using them.
Yeah.
In this movie, he seems just more like a general. Like he was more all brawn, brute soldier, have the scientists take care of it for him. I want this done.
Yeah.
There's no brains to it. He didn't plan anything besides just get them into the experimentation or in the labs.
Especially compared to how he's portrayed in X-Men 2. Like, in X-Men 2, he does seem more like the scientist.
Exactly. He's a lot more involved into the actual experimentations, into what he wants. Origins didn't give me that vibe.
Yeah, no. And as much as I love, like, him escaping the Weapon X program, they even filmed that kind of differently in X-Men 2 as well. Like, there's a lot more of a greenish tint. I mean, that's more nitpicky. I didn't really mind that, but...
Right, but for an Origins movie, I thought it was overall pretty good.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, what would you give that as a score out of 10?
So, it's hard for me to say just because I've been watching and knowledgeable in Marvel since I was a child before I even get into these main movies. So, in a nice, bias on perspective, I would say, honestly, 7 out of 10. Wasn't that bad. Some smaller things could have been changed, but overall, a good movie to me.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say 6.5 to 7 out of 10 for me. Like, it's a pretty solid start to what Wolverine would eventually become. It does fill in the gaps. I think it's pretty good.
I agree.
Alright, so do you want to kick it away and read the Wolverine plot synopsis?
I sure can. Next movie we're going to be discussing about is the Wolverine. Lured to a Japan he hasn't seen since World War II, Logan finds himself in a shadowy realm of Yakuza and the samurai. He is pushed to his physical and emotional brink when he is forced to go on the run with a powerful industrialist daughter, Mariko. For the first time, with the prospect of death, as he struggles to rediscover the hero within himself, he must grapple with powerful foes and the ghosts of his own haunted past. Dylan, go ahead and fucking do it, because I can't read for shit.
No. That was a good take. I'll use that take. What did you think of the Wolverine, the second entry of this trilogy?
Well, it's definitely a big jump to where Origins was. You actually get to see now where Logan is present day. He has a new identity. He is going through his own crisis, trying to find himself through his memories. He's retracing his steps. It's interesting to see how much he has fallen from X-Men 3, where losing everything, he has to go off to his own, wander alone, because he's too afraid of attachment or losing anything.
Yeah.
And to really see him build himself back up to what he was afraid to lose, to become the man he is today, it's definitely interesting.
Oh, for sure. Like, that's the thing I kind of like about these next two movies. Where with the first film, it's very much, it is about him, but it does go for this bigger bombastic, action sequence in terms of, we gotta save the day and save all these mutants. These next two movies, they're very personal stories, which I actually really enjoy. It's more about Logan than anything else, which I guess makes sense for a trilogy. But what I do enjoy, too, what you were touching upon, is that it does incorporate what we've seen in the other X-Men movies, but it doesn't completely take over. I remember watching this movie before actually seeing the X-Men trilogy, and, I wasn't completely lost. It felt very much like a character piece. Even though I didn't fully know who Jean was or that he killed Jean, you very much could tell that he is a haunted man throughout his whole life. And it just, honestly, even seeing, the scene change in terms of, going to Japan, that was kind of interesting to watch within a superhero movie, too. Just this guy is a fish out of water, also.
And that's what I liked about this movie, is that a lot of the cultural aspects and the history that went behind going into this movie, everything was pretty much historically accurate. And I liked that it was a different, atmosphere of just being in, a New York City or somewhere in America. We're going to take this overseas and really deep into what his memories were and also just the culture of Japan itself.
Yeah. What I find interesting too is I guess the reason they also put him in Japan is because there were a lot of famous comics where Wolverine was in Japan.
Did not know that actually. Like I said, I'm very knowledgeable in Wolverine. Not just Wolverine, but just Marvel in general. But there's only so much you can cover.
I think they're Frank Miller comics. I've seen a couple of the covers. I haven't actually read the comics, but that's kind of at least as far as I know comic wise with this movie. So, I guess what are some scenes that stick out to you?
I mean, it was a lot more in this movie. In my opinion, it was a lot more graphic, which
Yes.
I do appreciate because X-Men and Wolverine, especially, is a lot more of a gruesome character. He is out there for blood. The deaths are not easy going. Like it's not like a quick, painless death. They're very painful and very hard to go through. A lot of the scenes that stuck out to me was, especially number one, it was him digging out, I guess you'd call it a bionic bug, off his heart
Oh
to
yeah.
restart his regeneration ability. Just seeing not only through the X-ray machines of him trying to dig through, cutting himself open to dig out all the blood on his hands, and just a nice change of pace of just stab and your quick death. You see the gore and see the pain he's going through. That was a scene that really stood out for me when I watched it.
Yeah, like watching that again, just like on the X-ray machine, seeing like his fingers just narrowly touch his heart. That was like
Exactly.
I was gagged. I was like, ugh. And for a PG-13 movie, by the way, like they do push the envelope a little bit. With
They
the
really
PG-13.
push that line of how far we can go before it's rated R or something even worse.
Yeah, like you actually see blood on his claws. I don't know if you noticed.
And
that.
even
Just
exactly.
a little bit.
Even with his wounds throughout the movie of getting shot or hit, stabbed, you see the damage he's taking. Which I also another thing I liked about the movie is we're seeing more than just an emotional or mental break. You're seeing him physically struggle and what it's like not to have some of his powers.
A sequence that kind of stuck out to me, and I guess this also stuck out to me with the first X-Men Origins Wolverine. It's like you get to see how long he's been around. In the first film, you saw him fighting all these different wars with his brother Victor, and in this one, you actually get to see him as the bombs drop in Nagasaki. Like that opening sequence to me, that was really cool.
So that's another good scene that actually popped out is seeing the graphics of him literally getting burned from the bomb and just to regenerate as if nothing happened. There's a lot of scenes in the movie that really show like how advanced we've gotten to the graphics and to the CGIs to really blend with the movie. A lot of times I would see like in older movies like it's very cliche and like just instant. You see the healing process of him, or even some of the other mutants and their powers, especially in this one with another crazy scene was the Viper.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing her pull her skin off and like seeing her powers at work. To me, it was real.
Yeah. Like, I certainly think the effects with her were very seamless for sure. Like, it icks me out. Just anything like with peeling of your skin or touching stuff that shouldn't be outside. Yeah.
The real antagonist is see, man he saved is trying to take his life. And to me, that was just crazy to think about. You trying to pay a debt back to end Logan's life because he's been struggling with immortality, not realizing the appreciation he has for it. So seeing that plot twist of him trying to take it for himself, I thought was pretty insane. Not only with him, but his son, which is also America's father, trying to kill his own daughter to get the rights to the industrial and the company he's built. Twists and turns of who's really the bad guy here.
And what's funny is, like, in terms of, like, what those two villains, what they're going for, they both kind of share the similar theme, I guess, in terms of, like, appreciation and legacy sort of capacity.
And the adamantium.
and the adamantium, yeah.
Very obsessed with that. But
Yes.
no, it was nice to see a different perspective of who the villain was and their motivation. Like we saw in Creed and the Wolverine Origins, he just wants to make the perfect weapon. Now you see in the Wolverine a more selfish reason to become the weapon, which I thought was also interesting. It was the same theme almost, but different direction.
Oh, entirely, yeah. Now, are there some things you're not as crazy about with the Wolverine?
I feel like with the Wolverine, a few little nitpicks and negative things was I feel like the pacing of it was a bit too fast. I feel like they really try to rush getting into saving Mariko. Another thing I didn't really care for was it's always about the girl. I noticed that in the Wolverine too. It's always a female involved of saving them, chasing them down. I just feel like Logan has better things to do.
You feel like it's like too cliche for a movie, but also for Wolverine, it's kind of just basic, you think?
I think so. Like I said, he's trying to find himself an identity. but at the same time, he's always rushing for another person, ignoring his, self. I feel like that's a big thing I didn't care for the movie. He's kept pushing it back with his demons. When, don't get me wrong, it's a great story. It deserved to be in there. I just feel like it was pushed back too long. Throughout the entire movie, having his flashbacks with Jean or his other memories of him doing terrible things, I feel like he could have came with a resolution of it sooner. I don't think it had to be the very end of the movie to come with it.
Yeah. No, that's entirely fair. Because that's like the one thing I guess you could criticize with any of the X-Men movies and how they use Wolverine. It's that he's the protector in a lot of these movies. Mm. He's always protecting a girl or younger people, and that's just kind of how he is. When there's so much more you could explore with the character. He's been through so many wars. He's should have killed many people, and he's come back from that many times. That's not even including like the time travel stuff with Days of Future Past. Mm-hmm. There's so much trauma this character has endured, and they do kind of go through the same story, I guess. It's just protect this person, protect that person.
I think the other nitpick would be that with the Wolverine is, and this does happen too in the comics and everything, for people who don't know, when his claws were broken off, they come back as bone. That's exactly what happens. It comes back as its original state. My issue with it, though, is it should have grew back sooner back into metal. It starts off as bone, because he hasn't broken them off in how many years? And no one's ever done before till this movie. But it's in his bloodstream and DNA that he can regrow back his metal claws, which points it out to X-Men Future Past, saying, well, how's he have his metal claws if they were cut off back in Wolverine? It does grow back. I just think it took a lot longer than it needed to. I think for that scene to finish off the main antagonist, perfect. Mm-hmm. That was great. Later on, in the after credits, and even later in the movie, he should have had him back by then. So that's, again, it's a little nitpick for knowing more about the series. But overall, it wasn't terrible, just my opinion.
I actually didn't know that the metal adamantium grows back too.
It does.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, his entire skeleton will grow back. Like I said, he came back from a drop of blood. Yeah. And everything was back as normal.
Like, I figured the bones would grow back. I didn't think the adamantium over it would come back.
Yeah, because it is a part of his DNA. People would think that it's because, they experiment on him, they can't take that away.
Right.
Well, you're right. They can't take it away because now it's implanted in him. It just takes more time. It's a lot longer of a healing process for him because they're already working so much to fight off against the metal where you have against Deadpool where he just heals instantly. It'd be the same for Logan, just the metal takes it a lot longer to heal.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing, like, I can nitpick too about it. Because, like, here's the thing. The final fight scene, I like. The movie, I think it's been mostly subtle. The Silver Samurai, I like. He was a bit bombastic for the tone of the movie, but, whatever. I like the samurai. My main critique with that ending, though, is that the samurai's obviously trying to cut his claws off, right? He successfully cuts the one off, and then for the rest of the fight, he still has the other claws out.
I forgot about that, actually. He cuts them out the entire time.
It's so annoying.
Just retract them real quick.
Yeah, just put it in. You got the adamantium sword, or the katana, yeah. Mm-hmm. It was bugging me the whole time. Oh my gosh. But honestly, though, this is a pretty good step up, I say, from X-Men Origins Wolverine.
I would agree. Yeah, they took a lot of my nitpicks of focusing more on Logan than everything going on around him. It was a very continuous story. There wasn't like all these little Easter eggs and like parts pulled in together. It actually made sense, and this is the Wolverine. It's his story.
Yes. Now, what would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Honestly, I really enjoyed it. I would give it probably 8 to 8.5. I really enjoyed how the story was. I liked how it was in a different place, let alone a different country. Mm-hmm. And really focusing on Logan himself, both physically and emotionally, was definitely a different take.
Yes. We're on the same page. I actually would give that an 8 out of 10, too.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah. All right, and let's jump right into the concluding chapter of Logan. In the near future of 2029, a weary Logan cares for an ailing Professor X, played by Patrick Stewart, at a remote outpost on the Mexican border. His plan to hide from the outside world gets upended when he meets a young mutant named Laura, played by Daphne Keane, who is very much like him. Logan must now protect the girl and battle the dark forces that want to capture her. I'm going to be honest, this is my favorite of the trilogy, but knowing that Deadpool and Wolverine's around the corner, it's kind of weird watching it again. Just because this was supposedly the final chapter. Yeah.
Hugh Jackman said he was done after this. He was going to retire. And Ryan Reynolds said, nope, we're going to bring you back, buddy. New dynamic duo.
Yes.
But back to Logan.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But honestly, I don't think it takes that much away from it, because this really, to me, was the best chapter. It focuses even more on Wolverine, especially as he's getting closer to the end of his life, whether he, at the time, knows it or not. You get to see more of the effects of his past haunt him, this time with his adamantium skeleton. And just seeing the dynamic now at play with, this time around, with people directly involved with the X-Men phase of his career, like Charles Xavier. It really is super depressing compared to the other entries. And I don't know, it stuck with me all these years after watching it.
Yeah, this movie definitely took more of a serious, like, emotional impact for the audience. Like, hey, he isn't just gonna be rampaging, killing people. He's actually going through a very hard time. Like, in all of his movies, all the trilogies, he's going through his inner demons. He has something going on for self-identity. And to see himself broken in this movie, completely different. I would also say it's probably one of my favorite Wolverine trilogy. Exactly,
yeah. How do you feel, because I've had this debate with my girlfriend a couple times, because she does not like this movie, because she loves the world of the X-Men. But do you consider this canon with post Days of Future Past, or do you think this is its own separate thing?
It's hard to say, because in Logan, it takes place time-wise so much after Future Past. And people who don't know, based off the comics and everything, this does happen. The X-Men eventually are gone, and it's just Logan in the end, but this depends on which timeline you take in. So to say it's from Future Past or not, it's really hard to say. I'm hoping once the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie comes out, they really push things together to make more sense. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, I'm going to say it's not for now.
You don't think it is post Days of Future Past, then?
No, I think this takes place in a different time of it, because, again, it's hard to tell. You can't really, especially the different actors, the casts, the story of it. You don't really know how far it is in Logan of where we're at. Even with the other previous X-Men movies, it kind of jumps over the place. Not that I don't care for it. It does make it confusing, though. Yeah. So it's a hard yes or no of which it goes together. I don't know.
I kind of call me, I guess, a freak that kind of likes the more darker endings. I kind of think it is part of the Days of Future Past lore. There's like a line in Days of Future Past that really stuck out to me that kind of coincides with this, which is they're talking about they're getting annihilated by the Sentinels, right? And how it doesn't really matter what you do, because if you throw a pebble into a pond or a current, it'll just go around that rock, right? And it'll just create a similar future. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and that's what I like about it with Logan, too. It has the darker, like you said, darker aspects and story to it, and it makes it more appealing to me to see something so different. And like, hey, this is not going to be a happy ending kind of movie. There's a lot of trauma and death in this that you don't realize. They don't have to show the scenes in the movie to know how terrible, like almost apocalyptic, like he says in the movie, mutants are becoming extinct.
Yeah, the thing is, like, this is a pretty catastrophic event, like you said, for a mutant. But the fact that it's so not apocalyptic, yet apocalyptic for their kind, it's really interesting and kind of scary to look at.
Right.
It is certainly an end of an era, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Logan even take care of Xavier in the position that they're in is definitely heartbreaking, because you see Xavier do so much to help these mutants, and to see where he came from, to see a little man having mental health problems, and to have that with the strongest psychic mutant, that's pretty scary.
Oh, for sure.
And to see that only Logan's the one who can even somewhat tolerate his attacks from his seizures is just, you can see how painful it is, let alone for someone who doesn't have a healing factor.
It's just, especially, it switches the dynamics up a little bit, because in the beginning, Wolverine was, even though he could take care of himself, he was kind of the helpless one that gets taken in by Charles in the first X-Men. And now the dynamic has changed to where he has to take care of Charles, and it's not a win-win scenario for him at all, really.
No, and to see him become such a broken man now, he can't do any. Like, the time's finally catching up on him. His healing factors, he's becoming more mortal, and just to see him really struggle in fighting or let alone moving, it's just a real shock to see us as the audience and to see Logan himself. He is also conflicted of like how much he's fallen, all because of that and the metal in his bones.
Yeah, to kind of bring it, I guess, on a more like fan side in terms of what I do like about this movie. What do you feel about the violence portrayed in this film?
Oh, it was long overdue, Doug.
Yes.
Long overdue. This is the movie, and I wish we could have saw it in his previous movies. Maybe we'll see it in Wolverine and Deadpool. To see the Wolverine and any other gore from the other mutants literally take on a fight is life or death. It's not just you're trying to survive. I just love the impacts of not only the damage on himself when he fought all those different security guard or government, all the special agents, even seeing his daughter in action in the fight. You see a lot more of the blood, the gore, of how it would actually happen, not just... It's just crazy.
Yes. Yeah, compared to the other ones, like, it was mostly bloodless fighting. He just stabs it in and then it magically comes out super clean for most of the run of the series. And while the Wolverine pushed it, I agree with you. I'm glad we finally get to see a Wolverine where you stab someone in the head and there's actual consequences to it. There's blood dripping off the claws.
Or even seeing...
incapacitated.
Or even seeing, like, parts of his flesh sticking out from literally gunshot wounds into his stomach, or seeing his daughter decapitate people and see the neck of the head rolling down the road. It's just, that's what we needed.
Yes.
That's the Wolverine we needed for so long.
Yes, and I think we will get that again with Deadpool and Wolverine. But, like what you said, this was supposedly the last time he was going to play Wolverine. It's, like, kind of bittersweet, because it's like, we finally get it, but this is the only time we're going to get it.
Right, he really put his efforts into this movie. I mean, he has for all of his movies, but this is the one, which is why it's rated R. This is the Wolverine side, not just Logan. And even though it shows more of Logan's story, and you don't really see much of Wolverine going his berserker modes, I feel like it was very appreciated in the movie, seeing it.
Like, funny enough, this is, like, ultimately Logan's big final chapter, but I even like the new supporting character in Laura, X-23.
Yeah, his daughter.
Yeah, that dynamic, it's really interesting to see, because it's not a good, it's not a typical father-daughter relationship. She hates him for most of the movie, but also she kind of looks up to him because of the comics that she's been raised on.
Exactly, and that's what I liked about this movie too, is not especially Laura's story. You see how she was literally made in these labs. You see all of her friends and how they're supposed to be the new mutants, the new generation to follow under military order. To see her dynamic with Logan, never meeting her biological father, and see what his DNA made into her. Like you said, she resented him. She hated him for most of the movie, but in the end, it's her father. It's not like he had a choice in it. He proved himself to actually care for her, even though for most of the movie he's trying to get rid of her and not deal with her shit.
Especially considering she's able to do this, like, for a young child actress, she's able to do this without really talking most of the time, too. Like, I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, you see a lot of the body language spoke for itself rather than just talking in the movie.
Exactly.
And when she did, she just went on a whole tangent.
Yeah, she
I
never
thought
shut
it was
up.
really cool, bringing the ethnicity inside of it, like of both sides of how she was raised, learning Spanish and knew a little bit of English. I like that in the movie too, because whatever she would try to communicate, she did through English or with Charles Xavier. Thankfully, he knew Spanish as well mentally, with their little links. And even throughout the movie, even like through Logan's death, she would speak any English she knew just for him. And I really appreciate that. It was not just for like the audience, but hey, like, she is just a child. She is raising through all these new environments, not knowing anything, and just to take it in and learn to use it, I thought was pretty not interesting, but amazing for this actress to pull off for this character.
Is there anything with this, with Logan, that you weren't as crazy about? Because my list isn't really anything.
I guess the only nitpick... I know, I loved it so much. I guess the biggest thing for me was, I guess, the way he died, because, again, if you know about the comics, not that I was saying his death wasn't great. It was a great way to end the movie. Had a lot of tearful moments. I almost choked up a bit. It was amazing. But if you go into the lore of it, that's not how the way he dies. is a lot more sad and he's alone. It is a lot of different place in the story, but maybe again this might be a multiverse thing because they're bringing Hugh Jackman back. So if that's the case, I'm more for that. That's my only little nitpick of what I didn't like about the movie. Everything else is choreography, the CGI, the story, all amazing.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the thing I like about it too is, I guess if we're comparing the trilogy as a whole, it does kind of loop back around to X-Men Origins Wolverine, because really, he's trying to help those kids in the same way at the end of the first movie, and it kind of happens again in this one. He's saving a bunch of kids that are going on the same path that he is. It's kind of a fun loop around.
It is to show back, like, hey, I am an X-Men, I am a mentor, I am the Wolverine. He brings back pretty much with peace. Like, I know who I am. He's been doing so wrong in the movie, trying to avoid all these issues where he knows what's right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And to see it circle back, phenomenal.
To go basically for the last years of his life mostly aimless and losing all hope, finally finding hope within his daughter and within himself, it's really beautiful. It was really haunting to kind of see that Cross Gang turn to an X, because that's who he is now.
He was an X-Man.
So what would you give this out of 10?
Honestly, besides a little nitpick, it's up there. I say 9 out of 10. Like, it was a very good movie, well done story. 9 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, I gotta give it a 10 out of 10. I'm sorry, that's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it.
No, it's a great movie. I highly recommend it.
Like, even just taking out all the other X-Men stuff, although I wouldn't, like, it is the best of the trilogy, and I think it kind of works within the confines of the trilogy, because you do see the beginning, middle, and end, even if there are a couple of details missing, because it is part of a bigger saga itself. I just think it's the strongest of the three, and depending on how you look at it with the rest of the X-Men franchise, I think it's truly a beautiful ending.
It is.
Well, that's all the time we have for today here at Film Stash. My name's Douglas Campbell, and if you excuse me...
If you excuse me, I gotta add to the stash. Go see Devil